morning.
Again, my name is J.P. Shelton, as he said, and I'm going to talk about Christmas world and probably don't want to go back there again. But Christmas at sea sometimes is quite unique, and you can't, in the evening, you can't just jump off and go to the hooch and get a couple of beers because, you know, the Navy doesn't allow those on board.
With the exception.
With very few exceptions. First of all, I would like to thank Dudley for roping me into this. You know, he came up one day and he says, you know, I've got a great idea for a talk.
Wasn't me.
You know, it would be wonderful if we had somebody who could talk about spending Christmas at sea. Do you know anybody like that? Well, a month later, after several other people kept going in, I hear you're going to give a talk. I said, yes, I'll do that. All right, so I thought I would start off, let's see if this works, okay, with a little bit of music. Now, the Sea Chanters is a group, a choral group within the United States Navy Band. And it's a component. They were activated in 1956 by order of Admiral Arleigh Burke, who was then the Chief of Naval Operations. And the unit is charged with, quote, perpetuating songs of the sea. Well, they also do other things. So I thought I'd start with just a little bit of a holiday song for you guys that maybe you would enjoy. Let's see if I can get this thing started here.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been said that we don't do enough of the old stuff, or the standards. So this next one is for all you original hipsters out there. That's right, put your mittens around your kittens as we bring to you this holiday wish. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where those treetops listen and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow, the snow. Well then I am dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days, may your days, may your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
Just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and the children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. Well, I am dreaming of a white
your Christmases be white. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Ooh.
All right, so I hope that sets the mood. Okay, now these two guys are going to kind of play into my story today. You can guess who the one on the left is. Many years ago. The guy on the right there is Mark. He and I joined the Navy together. We went through the recruiting station, we went through AFES. We got on the bus together, went to San Diego, got off the bus, and it's the last time in both of our careers we were ever stationed in the same unit. We went to different companies in San Diego. We went to NTC Memphis, to different companies, different schools. We went to Lemoore to different squadrons. Always together, parallel, never in the same units. But both of us have parts of this story, so we're going to get started off with, we both went to Millington, Tennessee. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. It was the Naval Air Technical Training Center for many, many years, and it trained all of us young sailors on how to fix airplanes. And so I went there, assigned to electronics school. Became an aviation fire control technician, got trained in advanced electronics. Well, I got there in late November. And of course, having just taken recruit leave, didn't have any leave on the books to take for Christmas, so we had to stay there in Memphis. And they assigned us to work parties. And that's how it took up our time. So I was very fortunate. I got to drive the Zamboni. Well, it wasn't a Zamboni, but it kind of looked like one. It was a floor stripper. So we would go to the classroom buildings and take all the desks out and strip the floors down to the bare tile. Some of the tile came off too, I think. And redo them and everything else. So that was our work jobs for the next 2.5 weeks. But of course, they did have a good Christmas dinner. They let us have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day off. We didn't have to work those 2 days. So we went to the galley for dinner on Christmas Day. Very nice. They even brought out the good china.
Yep.
They polished it. You notice how it kind of shines? So we could fill up our trays with all the good stuff we had. Of course, the ham, the turkey, the mashed potatoes, everything you could possibly want. And there sitting at the end was a pumpkin pie. So my mother always made wonderful pumpkin pies. So I had it sitting there with my friends, we're eating, we're finally get most of the tray done. It says time to have that pumpkin pie. So I picked up my fork and put in a slice, grabbed it up green. Now let me ask you a question. How many of you out there has ever had sweet potato pie? If you haven't, and your mouth is all set for pumpkin pie, you're in for a real surprise. That pumpkin pie was not pumpkin pie, it was sweet potato. Anyway, I couldn't find a menu from that particular year. But here's a menu from NATTC Memphis in 1945. It's a Thanksgiving dinner. But it's kind of this idea that the menus, and this is what they had on their menu. Now, something that's interesting, they always make them sound really nice, but can you notice what's down in that lower right-hand corner? They always included cigarettes. Now, menus became a big part in the naval tradition for the Christmas Day. Matter of fact, at various times they had kind of contests which ship could come up with the fanciest menu. The ship's cooks would take their time and stock up on really good foods to take out on the ship for a Christmas dinner. And it was a special Christmas dinner. So here we have the menu. This was USS Monterey, and I don't remember what year it was.
18.
Now, in the time before computers and printers, these were all done by hand or on typewriters. So with the typewriters, of course, you have the chance of having typos, which might help explain why we have turkey with tartar sauce. And I think it's red snapper served with giblet gravy. Might explain why those are like that. But just some others. Here's a USS Colorado and their menu. And again, what do they have down at the bottom? They got fancy. They have cigars and cigarettes. But again, look at the types of foods that they offered. Now, on a sailing ship or a warship at the time, this is quite an extravagant meal. And so they really would go out that one day of the year to make sure that the boys on the ship had a good one. This one's the USS Barry, which is a DD 933. This is later on, this is a 1950s ship. And if you'll notice the commanding officer, J.C. Kidd Jr., I did some research trying to find it out, and I think that's a typo. I think it's supposed to be I.C. Kidd Jr., which is Isaac Jr., the son of Admiral Kidd that was killed on the Arizona, because he was the CO of this ship. As a matter of fact, he was the first CO of this ship. But again, they presented a very nice menu for the staff to have. This one comes from the USS Nitro, which was an ammunition ship. I kind of like this one because you notice it has Young Princess Anne Turkey. Roasted young, no, I don't know what a Princess Anne turkey is, but it sure sounds nice, doesn't it? This is from here in San Diego itself. I couldn't find the menu to go with it, but they had the cover online, and this is from the Naval Training Center at San Diego. Again, everybody got in on this, involved, and they had the fanciest menus that they could get for Christmas Day. And of course, everybody gathered around in the chow hall for Christmas dinner. This is at the Naval Air Station in Anacostia, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., in 1918. Don't they all look happy? Having a wonderful time. Now, this is not a skinny Santa Claus without a beard. This is the mail orderly. Okay, mail call, very, very important on ships. If you've ever been on ship, especially in the days before computers where you could link up with your wife every night on, mail call, a letter took, had to be like Starlight and stuff. Letters took as much as 2 weeks to get back and forth. So a conversation with your wife about a problem, that really spread out over time. But this guy is the mail orderly. He's bringing in the mail for the day, which gets us into discussion of Christmas cards. Okay? Now, many ships got into this idea and tradition of putting out their own Christmas cards. Now, the custom of sending Christmas cards actually starts in Britain, of course. Okay? 1843, the Postmaster General there to honor the new postal service decided to have some Christmas cards printed. 2,050 of them, as a matter of fact, and sent them out all over the place, which started this tradition of sending them out. Of course, now the ships at the time got right on the bandwagon and thought, hey, this is a great idea to showcase our ship. And so they started sending out Christmas cards as an expression of not just season's greetings, but pride in their own ships. Here we have one from the HNCS Bonaventure. Looks like some kind of an aircraft carrier to me. Now, I could not find out what ship this actually is, but I like the picture of the submarine and its decorations. Notice it has a little Christmas tree up on the top of the conning tower. And that's a Royal Navy submarine. We even had a whole flotilla of cruisers in San Diego Bay. The whole flotilla put out a Christmas card with a picture on it. And somebody's got a phone ringing. Okay. Is it me? No, it's not me.
Nope.
$5 fine. Oh, never mind. That's a different people. And here we have the USS San Diego. Notice what's on the bow, just behind the flag, a Christmas tree. Begins really a tradition of decorating ships at Christmas. And I have some pictures later that really show that. But ships would decorate Christmas. Aircraft carriers seem to, for some reason, like to get everybody up on the flight deck and spell out something, and then have somebody fly over in a helicopter and take a picture. So here we have the USS Franklin D. Roosevelt, CV-42, sister ship to our own Midway. Midway's 41, this is 42. And here they are spelling Merry Christmas. All those guys are probably really happy to get their lights on the flight deck to do that. Another one, another ship, USS New Orleans, a cruiser, CA-32, lead ship in its class, and put out their flag, or their card. Now lots and lots of traditions that we follow on at Christmas time come from the British, of course, you know, the biggest navy in the world for a long, long time. And here's just some of the things, and you know, looking at the olden times, what they might have looked like. Upper right-hand corner there, you have the food being distributed to the different messes, the grog being poured out, which they don't do in the U.S. Navy. Although discipline was always very strict in the Royal Navy, that was kind of set aside for Christmas. Lots of traditions, lots of hanky-panky going on. One of the things that they started, of course, was decorating the ship. So the tradition of decorating the ship goes way, way back. Here we have a sailing ship, and what they're doing is they're unloading fir trees or fir boughs, so they can decorate the bush, all the masts, the rigging, everything would be decorated with evergreens. Below decks, they would decorate with paper. They would have paper bells and making paper displays and just decorating all the ship to make it feel good. You know, you're away from home, you're probably in the middle of the ocean somewhere or off of some island that you've never heard of before, and you at least can make it feel good and make it homey and everything else. And as you can see, although you may not be able to find the proper materials, they found all kinds of things to make decorations out of and content themselves. All right. And that tradition of decorating ships goes on to today. Okay. Here we have the USS Princeton, a CG-59 decorated for Christmas. And I think if you look across the bay at night, you'll see the aircraft carriers over there, Lincoln and whatever else is there, with strings of lights on them. And we still do that today. Even in foreign ports, when we would pull into the Philippines, they would string up Christmas lights and make the ship look really, really good. Going on with traditions, now, the British had all kinds of strange traditions. One of them was called stirring the pudding. And this was weeks before Christmas. Why? I don't know how long it takes to make a pudding, but you know, it said weeks before. The first tradition was stirring the pudding, and the captain would go in and assist in this idea of stirring the pudding. It would be undertaken by the captain, the supply officer, and the youngest serving member on the ship. Okay, this youngest serving member on the ship plays a really important role during Christmas time. And they would go over and they would stir the pudding. Here we have just one lowly little lonely sailor doing it. And then it would be put into smaller containers, which would then be served to the different messes. Food, and not to mention drink, is a huge part of Christmas. Christmas is a very unique and special feel about it. Before the main course, there was always one very special tradition that everyone looked forward to, except maybe the captain. Okay? The youngest serving member of the ship on Christmas Day switched places with the captain. Okay? And so when the bell, or not the bell, when the whistle was sounded for mess call, everybody would go to their particular messes and they would wait for the captain to come around because he had to come by and check the food before they could be served. So of course it was always gaiety because the captain coming around was the youngest sailor there was and the greenest sailor. And the captain was following him and holding his hat and doing whatever he needed to do in the place of the young sailor. And so none of the food could be served until they had made it around to the different messes. You know, the enlisted mess, the chief petty officer's mess, whatever they had at the time, or petty officer's mess at least, and then the officers' wardrobes. Here we have another enlisted mess, okay? And the sailor, this is a little bit more modern time, and Yeah, okay. The guys would come in, they would sit down. Now, this is on a Royal Navy ship. Anybody know how I can tell that immediately just by looking at the picture?
Perhaps.
No?
The rank device in the sleeve.
No?
Beer on the table.
There's beer on the table. Exactly. So this is a Royal Navy ship because there are bottles of beer. No alcohol on U.S. Navy ships. Ever since Prohibition, Josephus Daniels says, we aren't going to have that. Sailors don't need to drink anyway.
Yeah, right.
Christmas dinner always consisted of all the trimmings, everything that they could get. And as we saw in the menus, very extravagant menus. Okay. Okay, so that's enough about food. One of the popular things in the U.S. that really set off Christmas for our military men was a visit by this guy, Bob Hope. His decades-long tradition of entertaining the troops started in 1941 when he took his radio show to a California naval base. He didn't say which one, but he was on the radio show. He had the Pepsodent show at the time, and he decided to take it to one of the Navy bases and do a show live from there. And he always took around lots of interesting people. Here we have, and I'm told that the one on the far side, that's Claudine Colbert, and we can all, I'm sure, recognize that mustache. Yeah, he's always in there, Jerry Colonna. He went to the ships, which is going to play in the next story I have. Here we have him on board the USS Ranger. If the troops were lucky enough to see him live, despite having very different tastes and attitudes, the service members, Bob Hope's era shows were the highlight of their time in Vietnam. Of course, he always took his golf clubs with him, used it as a prop. And here he is teeing off of the USS Ticonderoga. Imagine what that Russian submarine nearby thought when that golf ball started plopping down on top of him. Are we being attacked? Here we have him on Kitty Hawk, CB-63, one of my old ships, in the Subic Bay, Philippines in 1962. Anybody been to the Philippines in Subic Bay? Yeah, somebody spent some time there, I'm sure. Now, the guys went to see the shows, usually not to see Bob Hope because he was funny, but not good to look at. But he always brought along a bevy of beauties with him, like this stunning one. You recognize her? Elizabeth Taylor, of course. Wouldn't you go to see her? He brought along, we're figuring this is probably Miss America from whatever year that was. No, it's not Ann-Margaret yet. Okay.
Mitzi Gaynor.
And another beauty, again on the Kitty Hawk.
Is that who it is? I'm sure it is. Look at her. Sure looks like.
But his shows were always very popular, and he would go out to different shifts if the operations allowed. So I've got a real short clip here of Bob, and he'll tell you what ship he's going to as soon as I get this started.
Target the attack carrier, USS Hancock. Doesn't that deck look roomy? Oh, it is in the daytime. But try finding that deck after dark. It's like trying to find Mickey Rooney in a crowded elevator. You can do it, but it ain't easy. This is Christmas Eve, and would you believe it? Nobody went into town. They all turned out for the show. It was our third show of the day, and we were all pooped until we heard this audience.
I think done this taking care of it.
Is there volume control in there, Dudley?
Do the volume control down at the bottom.
Upper right-hand corner of the computer, you have a couple buttons. Sound.
Try that.
Actually, twisted in this.
Back up.
Well, I found a volume button over here. So let's see.
Doesn't that deck look roomy? Oh, it is in the daytime. But try finding that deck after dark. It's like trying to find Mickey Rooney in a crowded elevator. You can do it, but it ain't easy. This is Christmas Eve, and would you believe it? Nobody went into town. They all turned out for the show. It was our third show of the day, and we were all pooped until we heard this audience. Here we are aboard the USS Hancock. What is this, John Wayne's canoe? You guys are lucky. Jackie Kennedy doesn't have 1/10 this much, and you didn't have to marry the captain to get it. But I can't believe this belongs to the Navy. How'd Howard Hughes ever let a gambling layout this size get away from him? This is one of our older ships, but considering its age, it can move along pretty good, 18 knots on a gallon of prune juice. We had a nice trip yesterday when we flew from Bangkok to Benoit. Wonderful trip. We lost an engine and my stomach at the same time. You know how they say your whole life flashes before you? I barely had time to take 3 bows before I threw myself around Rosie Greer. You don't have to be an astronaut to know about soft landings, I want to tell you that. Of course, I never worry because I carry a cross, a St. Christopher medal, and a Star of David. When I go, I'm going to blame everybody. It was one of our longer shows. It had to be with this audience. Christmas morning, the destroyers Decatur and Wedderburn passed in review while the gold diggers filled their stockings. And Christmas morning, we choppered over to the USS New Jersey, the only battleship in the world still on active duty. She's really a camp follower. This is her 3rd war. And how the Marines dig her sitting offshore lobbing those 2-ton shells 26 miles inland and dropping them right on target. Christmas dinner we shared with the enlisted men in their mess, and they built a cake for us that could have satisfied Jackie Gleason. And what a room for a show. Makes the Coconut Grove look like a phone booth. What a stage, 30 feet above the audience. I guess it's safe to do my dance with Ann-Margaret here. The ship's roll may help. Ann-Margaret, I want to thank you for making this trip. I want to tell you that.
Oh, you don't have to thank me, Bob, because I happen to love each and every one of these men. I would love to go out there and give them all a hug.
That would be silly. But they have ensigns for that. Just for the record, is Ann-Margaret one name or two?
I spell Ann-Margaret with a hyphen. Harphin? What is that?
I spell it with an exclamation point. You were born in Sweden, weren't you? Do you find American men a little on the Boy Scout side?
Oh, goodness, no. I think that Sunset Boulevard is farther out than any country. Haven't you ever been to a love-in?
Love-in. My doctor doesn't even let me watch Laugh-In. And I want to tell you, you're a show business phenomenon. You became a star overnight.
Well, I was very fortunate. I did one number on the Academy Awards show, and people were very, very nice to notice me.
Notice you. You shorted every power line between Santa Monica and Kansas City.
You're exaggerating.
I'm not. I was there. I was standing right there. It's the first time my cummerbund was welded to my navel. Honey, I can't tell you how wonderful it is, though, to have a fellow dancer on the show.
Oh, you a dancer?
Surely you jest. I stepped on a lizard this morning and I did your whole act.
Shall we put him to the test?
What did you have in mind, a song or a dance?
Both.
Okay, but if I require mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, remember, no fellas. Let's go.
the two of us. There'll always be for you and me, the two of us. We'll always be together like the cat and the cream. But we're in a dream of our own. We're going alone, there's just the two of us. And we will always traveling on. That movement's getting to me. The two of us. Our love will always stay between the two of us. It doesn't matter if the skies are cloudy. We're happy away from the storm. We're golden warm harbor, the two of us. And we will always travel on. I need me when my days are done. I'll turn down the lights when all our friends have gone. Wait for the moment when we're all alone. And that's the way it's got to be, together or alone, yeah. Two of us. We both agree it's gonna be the two of us. It's flying safe, you know it won't last. But holding our fast to a dream. We don't know what to mean, but there's still the two of us. And we will still be traveling on. Should we travel?
That was cool.
How many of you guys were ever watching Bob Hope in that movie? Liars about y'all. You're looking at those beautiful legs and not Bob's. All right, back to these two guys. Notice there's no me on one side. This next story has to do with Mark. Okay? Well, like I said, Mark went to different squadrons, and that last video was from 1972. Well, Mark was on the USS Coral Sea at the time. Where did we go? My picture. Hardly out. Oh. Sadly, I'm locked up. It's not working.
Uh-oh.
It worked earlier.
You should just stay up there, Doug.
You gotta stand on one foot and stick your tongue out one side.
Anyway, I have a picture of an A7. We both went to A7 squadrons. He was in VA 22 at the time, fighting Redcocks, if anybody's familiar with that story. It doesn't want to work. It's froze. I don't have a picture. Anyway, I can go on without the pictures, and while Dudley tries to fix that. Oh, did we get it back?
There it is.
Okay, so we both went to A7. Here's a VA-22 A7 from that era. You can tell it's from early era. It's painted pretty instead of all that flat stuff that they put on later.
Oop.
And again, the USS Coral Sea. Well, you remember that idea about, operational commitments? Well, Bob Hope flew out to the Hancock, could not get to the Coral Sea, although he was supposed to. It was scheduled, but operational commitment said no. Well, it just happens that Mark's mother is a good friend of Bob Hope's dresser. And she was expecting to get to the ship to say hi to Mark. Well, when it got canceled, she went and told Bob. Bob said, well, this isn't going to work. So he went and told somebody. Pretty soon, Mark's getting a call on the ship saying, get to the flight deck, there's a cod waiting for you to take you to Da Nang. So he catches a flight to Da Nang, catches a helicopter up the way, and sits front row to see Bob Hope. After the show, backstage, drinks with Bob and all the girls and everything else, and then back on a helicopter, back on a cot, and back up to the ship. A bunch of angry shipmates. Jealous, but angry. You got to go see the show and we didn't. So I guess it helps to have somebody know somebody who knows somebody else, because you get to see Bob Hope. So, those two guys again. Well, while Mark was seeing Bob Hope, I got to sail on the Enterprise in 1965. And that takes up to my first Christmas away from home at sea. So I was on USS Enterprise at the time, and we were making a sail, and we left San Diego, California, I think, in August, and we sailed around. So we were getting into the Philippines, and we're going to spend Christmas in Subic Bay. Oh boy, what a thrill that was going to be. So while we get there, we get mail call, and we got cards from home. The base there at Lemoore got all the wives and families together. We couldn't find the picture that goes in this, but they took pictures of the families, and they sent these nice little cards to everybody in the ship. Well, a couple buddies and I said, you know, we're going to be in port for 2 weeks over Christmas and New Year's. Why not take leave and fly home? We've already been to Hong Kong, got a bunch of presents and all. Skipper said, yeah, no problem. So we went to the Navy Credit Union, got some money, flew home, got home in time for Christmas. Spent Christmas with my honey down at my parents' house in Los Angeles with the whole family. And we had a nice Christmas. Got back up to Lemoore, the phone rang, you got to get back to the ship now. But we were going to stay until Christmas, through New Year's Eve. No, you got to get back now. So we had to call out, get flight reservations changed, get back to San Diego or San Francisco, catch a flight, back to the Philippines. Nice flight. So we leave Hawaii on a jumbo jet, probably hold 300 passengers? There was 46 of us on board. Philippine Airlines. Well, we happened to leave on December 30th, and we were arriving on January 2nd. Because somewhere in the middle of there, we crossed the international date line. So New Year's Eve went away. Well, the captain says, I'm just going to declare it New Year's Eve. So, normally they would come down and give you a glass of champagne. What the heck with that? Each of us got our own bottle of champagne. So after we partied for a while, finished that off, and the big jets used to have the center rows of seats, where there were 6 seats in the middle. You just fill up all the arms, they brought out pillows and blankets, and we slept the rest of the way. So it was a fantastic flight back. But we got back, still didn't leave, but it sat in Subic Bay until well after New Year's Day. So we spent New Year's Eve in the Philippines and along the Pope. That's another story in and of itself. All right, so my story continues, only it's a little bit different me now, okay? I got commissioned in 1977, and so one of my tours, I went to the Coral Sea as an AIMD officer, and then later on, I went to the USS Tripoli. So in December 1st of 1990, getting ready for the first Gulf War, December 1st, the Navy says, you guys are deploying. We were the last battle group to deploy because we weren't supposed to leave until March. So December 1st, okay guys, you're going and you leave. It puts us at sea between Hawaii and the Philippines for Christmas. Well, not the best place to be. And yeah, they did some preparations and all, but it wasn't the best. So for Christmas Day, if anybody been on a ship, wardrooms, they have a formal wardroom for the officers, and they have usually 2 seatings, and one of them is when the executive officer goes to eat. So for Christmas Day, he said all the department heads are going to have dinner in the wardroom for the first seating. So we dutifully put on our nice khakis and looked really good and shaved and combed our hair and everything else and went down. And we had the formal dinner. Now, you'll notice that this one actually has china on the table. No little metal trays for the officers, that's different. So after dinner, I invited some of my chiefs and some of my buddies to come up to my stateroom. Now, how many have been on a cruise and on a nice cruise ship and had a nice stateroom? Well, don't mix that up with a shipboard stateroom for the Navy, okay? This is quite similar to my stateroom. You notice there's not a lot of room in there. That back there that's a bed, that folds up to make your sofa. So you can imagine if you get 4 or 5 people in there, it's pretty darn crowded. But my wife had set me up, so I had some snacks. Of course, the good old Swiss colony assortment, meats and cheeses and crackers and such and all. And cookies, you know, my wife makes wonderful cookies, so she had a big box of cookies. And a friend of mine makes these wonderful little round cookies that are drenched in rum. Rum balls. Now, does anybody remember Bob Dale?
Oh, yeah.
And his story about booze balls? Hey Dale, you want some booze balls? And he did, okay, never knew. Well, these were about the same way. You couldn't get drunk off them, except for maybe just inhaling the vapors, because you open up that box and like, whoa, we better wait till the skipper doesn't come around and he'll think we're drinking. But they were great. We had a great time, spent the whole evening just reminiscing, eating crackers and all, and we were packed and crammed, people coming and going. But that was a wonderful way to spend Christmas at sea, even though the family wasn't there. And ending up my tale, I have another song by the Sea Chanters. Okay? And this one I think you'll enjoy. It's just a little, let me get here to the right place. Okay, let me see if I can find it.
Most wonderful honor, no, privilege to present to you that most beloved of Christmas tunes. The Christmas can. Christmas time is here, and Christmas songs you love to hear. Thoughts of joy and hope and cheer, but mostly shopping. Christmas time is here. The sleigh bells and the red-nosed deer. Songs we love to hear, all played 1,000 times each year. Heard this same song 20 times, and it's only Halloween. It's not even cold outside. Christmas time is here, and Christmas songs you love to hear. Joy to the world, mostly shopping, Christmas season, starting sooner every year. It's October, stores with plastic Christmas trees, ransack the mall, shop until you lose your mind, spike the eggnog, sit back and watch Who the Frosty Christmas, Scrooge and Grinch, Charlie Brown style. Hey, it's time to do the Christmas cancan. If you can't dance, well that's okay. Not gonna do the kick like all you need is a tree, some lights, about 1,000 presents, wrap them up and pray to snow. Run to your closet, find your Christmas sweater, screaming carols all the way, all the way to California. It's the Christmas cancan, Halloween to Christmas Day. It's the most wonderful time of year. We're running mad with Christmas cheer.
Hey, what's troubling you, my friend? It's not fair if you're Jewish.
Not fair if you're Jewish. Dreidel, I made it out of clay.
You realize that Christmas ain't the only holiday.
Hey, he's right, who made these laws? Look, wait, here comes Santa Claus. Hey, Santa, do the can. Help him if you can. Join in the parade.
I'm gonna go get some Chinese food.
All you need is a tree, some lights, about 1,000 presents, wrap them up, pray for snow. Run to your closet, find your Christmas sweater, screaming carols all the way.
Stop.
That's the end of the slide music. We fill up the wrong one. Okay, well, that was the practice one that got the end. And there's supposed to be another slide here that says, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to all of you, and thank you for listening. Now, normally at this time we would say, do you have any questions? But rather than that, does anybody else have an interesting at sea, away from home Christmas story they would like to relate?
Yeah, I got one.
It's the Christmas King, and that's the note. Wait for the ending. We should share this holiday. Come on, Agila. Happy Hanukkah to you. Happy Hanukkah to you. Happy Hanukkah to you. A Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, and all.
You broke it.
I broke it.
You were okay.
I broke it. All right. Well, there was another slide I put on, but it didn't come through onto this one. I had fun, actually. It turned out, once I got started on this and doing some research and looking at the different traditions over the centuries, it was quite fun. But one thing I did learn, okay? If Dudley ever walks up to you and says, "Hey, I have a great idea for a presentation," turn around and run quickly. Dudley, thank you.
There was one other thing that JP and I discovered when we came up with this idea of Christmas at sea, and that is the misperception that most of the people, non-military people, have that the Christmas season in the military is a big deal and it's all joyful. And so JP and I took a survey of about 6 or 7 people that we know that were in the military that spent some time either at sea on board ships or away from home. For myself, it was Vietnam and Korea. And nobody really enjoyed it. They would much rather have been at home. But the military did go and take quite a bit of an effort to try and ease that pain as much as possible. So it was really difficult to find people who were saying, "Oh, I had this great time in wherever during the Christmas season." We just couldn't find any of those. Yes, sir.
I was on the U.S. Point Defiance and on USS Pyro, and I was a cook, and we put a spread out and would knock your socks off.
Yeah, you can't deny that the Navy ate better probably than any of the other services. Yeah.
Now, like Dudley said, it sounds like there was a lot of gaiety and all, but again, you're away from home. That trip from the Philippines back to the States for 5 days to spend Christmas with the kids and wife was worth every penny of it.
Thank you again, JP. That's it. Thanks for coming. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year.